Hi, welcome to the Property Show. I'm Jayashree Kurup. I'm editor MBTV. I have with me Mr. Amrit Abhijat. He's the mission director of the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, one of the very, very successful missions of the Government of India. Thank you, sir, for joining us. 5 years,
Thank you.
Big target, right? And great achievement.
Yes, it is. We derive tremendous satisfaction in the fact that last five years has been a relentless effort and a journey along with the people of this country into making the vision of Honorable Prime Minister a reality. We are excited.
Sir, when we start, shall we talk about some numbers? What has PMAY achieved? When you talk about achievements, what are the few parameters on which you measure achievement?
Okay, that's a good question. It has not been a success where we just measure in terms of the numbers, but I think numbers are really, really important. We set out an initial target of about 1 crore houses. Initially, the demand was 1.87, but after the demand survey was done by the various states, the demand rose to at about 1 crore 12 lakhs. And as on today, as I speak, we have been able to fulfill the approval of about 1.05 crore houses, out of which about 65 lakh houses are being made, is under progress at the point of time, and 35 lakh houses have already been completed and delivered to the people of this country. So, and we still have 2 years to go for the end of the mission. So, by sometime around next month or maybe another month from there on, we should be able to complete the projection of 1.12 crore houses, give and take here and there, because there may be a couple of additions there also, because we stand by the promise we initially made that this is a housing for all. So demands can actually come even after that, but at the moment it is 1.12 crore houses. And having fulfilled 35 lakh houses and the construction is in swing, we are quite optimistic that we will be able to meet the expectations of housing each one of them by March 2022. We also derive satisfaction from not only, as I told, the numbers, but also from the fact that this is way beyond what other schemes in the erstwhile governments or early times we was even imagined. We could do about 12.5 lakh houses as per sanctions in the earlier scheme of Jayashree and Ray, and delivery was close to about 7 lakh houses. We actually had to get a lot of them completed. So that way, it's been a huge paradigm shift. And it is not only that the governments work differently, but it is also the fact that infusion of technology, infusion of space, new financial systems of fund transfer, these all have helped in a big way. Apart from the fact that the vertical approach in PMAY, wherein different types of housing was provided to as a choice to the people and to the state governments, made a lot of difference.
You want to break up the numbers and tell us how it worked. You had beneficiary-led housing, you had affordable houses in partnership and so on. So how did the cookie crumble?
See, for people, those who may be logging on for the first time, the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana essentially starts from the learnings of earlier housing schemes. The earlier housing schemes where, we tried to address the problem. I can go to the extent of saying that affordable housing was probably a very incremental housing by design, where the state wanted to do some good by solving the problems of people, those who stay on the fringes of poverty and, of the urban migrants. So it was always there. We've been doing housing since 1950s, but then it was, I wouldn't say piecemeal, but the effort was perhaps not in a very comprehensive manner, and the promise of doing a housing for all wasn't ever there. There were schemes and the plans, but it only achieved so much. So when the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana was launched, the very logic of starting this program was there that we will do it up entirely. We'll do it in a very comprehensive manner, and therefore one of the important verticals of this scheme was the ISSR, which was the in-situ slum redevelopment or rehabilitation, as they call it. This was essentially a takeaway from the erstwhile schemes of JNUM and Ray, but more comprehensive in the scale that it did allow a lot of private participation also. The second very important vertical was the affordable housing in partnership. This has been a huge hit because this allowed for a lot of private participation, EPC contracts, and particularly the western states of Gujarat, Maharashtra, Rajasthan, also Madhya Pradesh, states down south, Chennai, but as in Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, they have been able to make rapid headway in the kind of housing they have been able to provide, given the fact that they do not have too much of land availability, being urban in their nature essentially. However, the third important vertical, which has been a rolling success, is that of the beneficial link construction, the BLC, as we call it, because these are individual houses, and this has been a roaring success all across the states. Reason being that anybody who possesses a piece of land or is given out land by the state through a patta or through some authority by which they can claim it to be theirs, at least for a period, whether it's lease or ownership. That went a long way in fulfilling, and the expectations and the BLC number of houses is close to about 62 lakh houses that we've been sanctioned. The fourth vertical, the credit linked subsidy scheme, which also is an extremely important vertical because this is almost entirely owned by the market, as in the private players do make these houses. This is the interest subvention scheme where we assess the eventual buyer with the subsidy or interest subvention of 3, 4, and 6%, and they end up gaining about 2,500 rupees a month, or they save 2,500 rupees a month, and it actually translates into a gain of about 4 lakh rupee over a period of time of 20 years. So the credit link subsidy has got a success of about 11 lakh cases, 10.6 to be precise as on today, but we have a long pendency, and we, it's always short. The enthusiasm has been so good, and we have been able to transfer about 24,000 crores in the CLSS scheme itself. And I remember the days when in the earlier scheme of Ishap and Ray, we could achieve a progress of 18,000 cases. That's about all. And even in the first year when credit link subsidy was just launched, we could barely manage 5,000 cases. And this is something that we are able to do in a week's time now. So that is the kind of response we've taken up. We have a huge pendency of CLSS cases. Every time we do, every day we keep doing, but the response has been really, really good. And I can say that towards the end of the mission, we should be close to or perhaps more than 25 lakh cases that we would have done in CLSS. So CLSS, the additional benefit is that it helps the real estate economy in a big way, because the private people are able to participate, make their own buildings, and that way it has a ripple effect on the economy also. Much less said, even the PMAY as such, it has been a huge assistance both in terms of economy and employment, because overall the investment in PMAY as on today would stand at about 6.7 lakh crore, close to 7 lakh crore, because apart from what the central government gives out, we have a commitment of 1.6 lakh crore as of now, out of which about 72,000 crore has been disbursed. The state government will be giving close to about that amount itself, about 1.5 or 1.8 lakh crore. The people of this country, through their own contributions, will be making about close to 4 lakh crore through investment. So this makes the bouquet of about 6.5 lakh crore close to that, which will turn, which will be used in the economy. So this is the story of the four verticals, and that's about.
So actually, when you say this, the census 2011 did show us that a large amount of the demand was because there was decrepit housing and there was congested housing, and the numbers bear us out that beneficiary-led housing was something that took off in a very big way. And the middle classes, which were never really given subsidies before, you have actually included the middle classes. Help us understand the logic of including that.
This was I can say that the kernel of this idea, the Honorable Prime Minister announced that the middle class income group has to be incorporated in the CLSS at a certain given point of time. And the input was that this is a category of people who needs to be helped out, because this is the category which is has not been assisted in any significant manner in housing earlier. And with the rapid urbanization India was witnessing and the problems people were facing in housing space, did propel this kind of a philosophy of assistance going to them. And 3.5 lakh cases is what we've done in just about 2.5 years now, because it has been extended till 2021 also, and hopefully will go on. And the number of people aside, it has helped large number of professions, whether doctors, engineers, urban professionals, people working in the IT sector. And Gujarat, Maharashtra, Uttar Pradesh, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, these have been very leading states, to the extent that even Delhi, which has yet not brought about any significant PMAY proposal in BLC or any other vertical, has done fairly well in CLSS, because it is between the banker, builder, and the beneficiary. The beneficiary walks up to the bank, applies for his home loan, gets a home loan, then applies for a CLSS, selects a house, and once the loan is approved, then they also come to the CNAs, and then they are accommodated within the category, and it's deducted, the entire 2.5, 2.6 lakh on an average is deduced from the account. So the MIG in that sense has helped the middle class in a big way, and I can see potentially that this will go a very long way in assisting the people to achieve the goal of having their own house in a much more dignified way, because these are not houses which are ideally made by state governments or housing boards. So there is a traction there where people are buying houses maybe worth more than 25 lakhs, and a different sort of a housing altogether, but this needed to be done.
That's right. And you have taken away the fact that any support to housing was only given to those on the who are the have-nots. This time you have actually infused the haves to say that come forward and buy your first house, right?
Certainly.
And right now we're going through a very tricky situation of COVID. We've seen the migrants returning home. We've seen a large number of people going back to their homes because you're working from home. And you've also, will this change the equations? Will the nature of demand itself change for housing? Tier 1, Tier 2 cities, maybe you would also see the rural housing getting more demand. Do you expect anything like that?
Too early to say, actually, because one would expect things coming back to the normal, and I hope there is a vaccine somewhere around the corner, which is lurking on our way to just come and make things as rosy as life was. But given the fact that these things may take time, and there has been some shift in the number of people from moving from point A to point B, I really feel that there has probably been, there will be some readjustment in terms of demand structure, and maybe a city would lose out on some and a B city would gain. But overall, housing being something very, very basic, there is a large scope for the PMAY type of scheme to continue, because this is in the affordable space, even considering that the buying capacity may have been affected, or maybe the builders have been affected. Although I don't see that just these 3 months will make that kind of a significant impact. And I really, really do hope that with the kind of initiatives the government has taken, there will be a lot of activity coming around once things stabilize, because the workers will have to return and construction has to begin in full swing. But given the fact that some shifting is there may be a readjustment of demand, but not in a very significant category in demands not being there at all. So there may be a shift, but the demand going out is not what I'm looking at.
So the demand seems to have grown. If we look at our own website, the volume of searches has actually gone above February levels, which means that there is very, very active search happening in the market. And since you cater to, and today I think with PMAY, what you've done is you've given a lot of people confidence to search where earlier they did not. And so we are seeing a confident search of houses of 10 lakh, 12 lakh, 15 lakh, which earlier did not happen. People search for 50 lakh and above on websites. So clearly the supply was fixed, the demand has, it's a proud demand that's coming through, and you're seeing that new confidence of buyers and sellers.
Quite true. I agree. In fact, I would tend to go to the extent that with the kind of insecurity life has brought in, a large number of household leaders, so to say, whether it's the lady of the house or the person who's earning the bread, either ways, would probably want to look at a house to make some sense of security of getting a house. So there may actually be some push there where people want to settle things and have a house of their own. Also, that there may be a lot of housing coming about in the rental space, but that's something we would talk about later.
Sir, when you talk about the PMAY demand and the housing demand, are you expecting a surge in the demand? Are you expecting a change in the design format? We are all working from home. Let's assume that even with a vaccine, it would take about a year for the world to normalize. But what we've really realized is that a home is not something that you just come back from work and spend your evening in. It is something that you can work out of, husband, wife, children, everybody working in the home space. Do you expect a need for change in design at all? And will the mission be flexible to that?
Absolutely. See, in terms of the total space that we require in a PMAY house, particularly in the AHP vertical or the BLC, is we say that ideally these spaces should be 30 square meter within the carpet area. But we do not restrict that it has to be a compulsion. The state governments can increase the sizes, and we very much realize the fact that there may be a requirement of an area or a facility where the members of the family can work from using the computers, and particularly in the CLSS MIG and the AHP vertical in the urban centers. I feel that there is a scope for that, and we are very much open to the idea of having this facility in the home. And if it goes beyond that, we have absolutely no problem. But the financial assistance is being what it is, because that is not being considered. But the state governments and the entrepreneurs can play around with the internal structure. We have absolutely no problem with it, because this is the need of the hour, because willy-nilly a lot of work is happening from home.
Absolutely. So one more feedback that we've got from consumers who have been looking for PMAY houses, that the parking space that is provided is a two-wheeler parking, and especially during post-COVID, when we did our surveys, what came through was that using public transport is going to be a challenge, and there is a need for car parkings. Is that something that the mission is open to? This has come from a lot of people.
Okay.
We've seen a big demand, saying that the only thing that keeps people away from that is that there is especially in the LIG segment and maybe lower end of MIG, that if you don't have car parkings, it is it is a negative for them, because they do have cars.
Okay. I take your input as input that has come from the field, and we would like to engage with people and bring about changes if required. Certainly, I think this is a good input, because if the number of vehicles increase, so parking has to be provided for.
So now some of the questions people are asking, the kind of questions that we always get when you are on the show. If my father has a house and I'm a young earning member, I'm currently staying with my father, is it possible for me to apply for a PMAY home?
Someone staying with the father?
Yeah, it's a family, but the son or the daughter wants to buy a separate house. So the family.
What is the age of the son or the daughter?
Above 21.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if they are married and they have a separate family, father's family is a separate family, because young adults by definition become a separate family. So there is no problem, and they can very well apply.
Okay. Another thing is, can CLSS loans be foreclosed?
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially because you have given a subvention, especially if people who've taken a CLSS loan,
Mhm.
and it is
There is a provision. There is a provision that it can be foreclosed. Yes.
okay. Okay.
Mhm.
Of course, this you've addressed. Will COVID induce a change in the design of PMAY houses? And then another one is: do you think we need to scale up the construction activity to bring down property prices? Meaning, do we need scale? So that volumes, when there are volumes, you have economies of scale and the prices come down. Is this something that is required?
Very much. See, as it is, this is the fifth year of the mission, and we will be pushing in for faster completion anyway, and with the use of technology and, of course, the resources in terms of finances. And given the fact that we are left with about 2 years of the mission, we are certainly looking forward to it in any way. But given the fact that, to address the issue of economies of scale, we would certainly like to provide all kinds of assistance to the state governments so that construction is faster, even in creating employment for a large number of rural migrants, those who come to the cities, because uh, uh, real estate does bring about a huge amount of employment potential also. So there is a win-win situation for the mission, for the people, those who have to get into the houses, for the entrepreneurs, as well as for the workers, those who contribute into making these houses.
You briefly touched upon technology. You also have a big technology mission running parallelly, right? You are trying to bring in technologies. So, would you like to elaborate a little more? And
Yes.
one of the things that our consumers have come back to us is that now they want completed houses. They don't want to take the risk of delays of housing.
Hmm, hmm. The advantage with PMAY is that most houses get completed within the allotted period of time. That is because if you are assisting somebody in a substantive way, considering that the Government of India's investment is close to about 35 40% of the cost, and the state government contributes equally with this might. So there is just about 30% chance of the persons or the entrepreneur putting in their money. So what really happens is that it is almost a tight mechanism of the houses being complete, and also use of geotagging and space technology to monitor projects. There doesn't seem to be a lot of leeway in terms of projects not getting completed. So that kind of an assurance is there. But answering your question specifically, that people want complete houses, yes, there is a tendency there, and we really, are therefore trying to uh, get them completed at the earliest possible time. But coming back to your question, what was the
Technology, sir.
technology? So technology in PMAY has been a huge incentive, in the sense that with PMAY coming, a lot of technology was happening, and a lot of prefab technology was being used in the states of Maharashtra, Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, and Karnataka. But with the Honorable Prime Minister intervening at the level of Global Housing Technology Challenge, what we did last year, large number of technologies came. 54 technologies from the world over did come, out of which about 28, 29 have been, come up. We have come up with the SORs, schedule of rates, and the PWD schedule, and these are helping in the traction coming in, because you need a huge set of demand to be able to push these. Having said that, we are still on the issue of promoting them, and if the COVID hadn't happened, the construction to the 6 lighthouse projects would have started in the last week of March, when we had got the time for the formal inaugural. And these will be made in 6 major cities in the country, and they will serve as lighthouses, because you have to start somewhere. So these were like projects which the entrepreneurs, engineering students, the policymakers, all of would have got an opportunity to see them being made, and these live laboratories would have then got replicated otherwise. But perhaps this in the coming months we will be able to start that. Also, that there's a lot of academic work that is happening on the new technologies. We've been promoting it through the BMTPC and the School of Planning and Architecture. They've launched a course on new technology, and they are doing it because even if we had the land, the resources, the money, and the technology, you need a set of people who will deliver projects on ground, whether they are engineers, whether they are masons, plumbers, new kinds of assignments altogether, because these new houses come with new skill requirements also. So skilling was really important. I'm happy to share that about 15 lakh houses in PMAY are happening with new technology, and they are much faster, greener. There may be issues of, uh, people not being very used to that kind of a housing anymore. But this now seems to be really catching up, and I do see in the states of Karnataka and Maharashtra where the private sector is taking use of this technology in a big way, particularly the Shirke style and the prefab technology, the GFRG and uh, monolith style. So this will become the order because gone are those days where there is enough bank money left, and the interest schedules are so addressed because people are working on a very tight shoelace budget, and therefore you cannot extend the time. So the lesser time you do it, and you earn more profit. So eventually, what will happen is that houses will be made in about a year's time.
Right. In fact, that was the next question I was going to ask you. Many of the experts who come on our shows have been saying India takes way too much time to complete its housing. You need to crunch the time. You need to make it a tighter schedule so that people don't have to wait for 3-4 years. It's too long for a person to wait for a house. And either you build and then sell, or you shrink the timeline.
Yeah. So as I said, because it will not only take the technology, because technology, I would believe that prefab technology has been there for quite some time, but it is the skills that we require. And our engineering institutes, our technologists, our skill development centers will have to arm themselves into providing that kind of a manpower. Because when we were sitting down with the institutions like Naredco and Kradai and talking to hardcore professionals who are delivering these projects, they say that skill is something where we really need to work on, and there is a huge gap in the terms of new kinds of role that the skills will require, because you require a different kind of plumbing, you require a different kind of a flooring structure there, and so these skills are coming. This will also give rise to a large number of employments, but I think the availability of finances, because they cannot be a very long drawn affair. It has to be a 14-month, 16-month period where the entire project is rolled off. So it will create a new ecosystem where the technologies, where the skills, where the funding mechanism, and also the funding on behalf of the beneficiary will have to be really, really fast. It cannot be a 4 or 5 year game anymore.
So you've seen a very large number of skilled manpower coming back from places like the Middle East, especially in states like Kerala, where they were working in the construction sector. They've come back to India. An opportunity for us to upskill the existing, upskill or reskill the existing manpower in the real estate sector, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And is there going to be any incentive to developers to actually have at least part of the workforce to be skilled?
Yeah, I'm aware of the large number of state governments who have initiated skills also in the Garib Kalyan that was recently launched, but they will be absorbed in the Indian market, and there is large scope for their skill also, because if they were working in other places like Dubai, obviously one would expect that they probably were working in the construction sector, which is in the prefab technology. So they will be absorbed very well. But one thing that I needed to add today was the affordable rental housing thing, because this will also absorb their housing needs. That people, those who had to return back to their own places for want of houses not being there available for them at the units where they were working or in and around the neighboring area where they belong to, the Honorable Finance Minister did announce it on the 14th of May of a policy that we would be working on, was of the affordable rental housing complexes. And it's almost ready, and we are working on it at the final stages. Once this is done, there will be a tremendous boost to the private sector to engage also in providing these houses in their own campuses, in joint ventures, where they can, if a factory is running and they need to create a space for their own 100 people working, suppose it's a hospital, you have ward boys, you have pathologists, you have nurses, you have management staff. So you can have a mixed kind of a housing where you provide them, and such people, those who are able to do this, will be assisted in a big way in terms of policy approach, whether it is our push to provide them loans at a cheaper rate, whether exemptions in various income tax categories and so on and so forth. So there will be a huge assistance there, which we are looking at. Once it gets through, then a lot of entities will be able to make houses for their own staff, also for the staff which exists otherwise in the market space. And they will not now have to move around the various parts in city and go into some slum or informal settlements. They will be able to work at the places of their own or of the urban local body, either way. So this is something that we are working on.
So when we looked at structured rental housing about 2-3 years ago, when we were studying it, one of the things that came through was that rental housing was not efficient enough. The returns were not sufficient to enthuse the private sector. How do you fix that? And the second thing is that if you're looking at the corporates, the corporate entities creating employee housing, will there be tax breaks or something like that?
Yes, see, I'll answer the question in two parts. One is the rental housing market as such.
Yeah.
So, and I am looking at the affordable rental housing complex. So, affordable rental housing or rental housing is being addressed by the ministry, and that is a work in progress. And you are shortly going to hear some very good news on that. I am not privy to a lot of information because I do not look after that myself, but I'm aware that the ministry has been relentlessly working on that area. Second is the affordable rental housing complexes, which is particularly for the migrant workers and the urban poor, as you told, people coming from shifting from point A to point B, having skills but having no house to live in, there will be a provision for that. So this is how, and in both the models, and I particularly in the affordable rental housing complex, there will be policy pronouncements which will be assisting the people, those who enter into this market as a private entity. Some huge tax issues will be there, but obviously since it's not gone through yet, so I may not be able to share so much, but there will be a very good return on people, those who are entering into this market. And perhaps when we sit next with you, I will be able to actually delineate how the model works. So there will be an operational management cost. What are you able to do? There will be a commercial sale area. Those issues are being looked at, and I'll be happy to come again on the show and discuss this in great detail, because I believe that this will bring about a huge opportunity also for the private entity to do something which has not been tried earlier, because there was no provision for doing it through the government assistance.
Yeah, anything that was informal, when you bring it into the formal context, will always bring with it an opportunity, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm going to go back to some of the questions about the scheme that you already have. There's Ravi who asks, is it mandatory to have your spouse as a co-partner in the property bought for CLSS benefit?
Not in CLSS MIG.
Okay.
In CLSS MIG, we feel that the emphasis on the women being the owner is something that they would have realized by now, that she is a very important partner, and and there was a policy decision that we cannot insist here, because invariably to afford a house, husband and wife do contribute, they take a joint loan, but otherwise, yes.
Okay, so for EWS and LIG, it is a must.
And also for other verticals, the women has to be there. Either it is women or it has to be a joint property. It can be a man's only if he's the only partner, as in he's not married or probably, is divorced or something like that.
Then in which case he can afford.
In that case, he's a separate entity altogether.
Okay. And what is the only mid-income housing is extended under CLSS? Was the demand for such properties? Why was the CLSS extended only for mid-income housing and not for the rest of it?
No, the rest of it is, there's no problem, because it is the MIG where we are doing incrementally, because we are looking at the demand structure, and we are also, it is a, see, and an initiative of like this kind takes a lot of money. And the government has to, dig in deep to be able to find funds for it. And that every week I get a balance of large number of CLS cases. So we have to go back to the government and we have to say that, yes, there are people waiting for this, and, it is extended. But otherwise, the EWS LIG continues till 2022. There's no problem there. But it is the MIG, because it takes a lot of money. that we are having to go from time to time. But anyway, this is continuing right now, and we are very happy to share that this was announced by the Honorable Finance Minister that this will be till the 2021, and we will again go back to them to seek further extension, seeing the need.
I think what kind of support have you witnessed from developers in the past 5 years? Are more and more builders working in this segment?
Yes, more and more builders are working. See, it also happened that with the launch of PMAY and as the country is progressing, there was a lot of market correction and course correction also in the aftermath of demonetization. A lot of different kind of money was sucked out of the system, and more formal spaces came in. And as more formal spaces came in with increasing liberalization, we were also in some kind of environment where the market may have been told to be slightly suppressed. So given these 3-4 factors, there is this shift towards affordable housing vis-a-vis the luxurious housing or the penthouse kind of housing that was there earlier. Now people, and also the family sizes, and how people are migrating from even within cities, families preferring to work, somebody preferring to study in stay in a studio apartment, and somebody preferring to leave their family elsewhere. So the private builders have been able to address the space of affordable housing, and it has picked up in a big way. And I see that a large number of projects being launched are in this category. In fact, your reports also do indicate that of the total number of launches, the launches within the affordable housing segment is much bigger. Of total number of houses in CLS, like 11 lakh cases, is coming from within the real estate sector only. So to that extent, one can imagine how affordable housing has really picked up.
So I'm going to ask you one of the questions that have come in. What is the maximum term for loan taken under CLSS? Can a buyer extend this period considering financial issues due to COVID?
Normally, the payback period is anywhere between 9 to 10 years.
Yeah.
But if it comes to it, we'll have to take a look. But 20 years is it's a long time, even going by the CLSS right now. Even if it's a 3-year-old loan, they've got 17 years to pay back. And 3-4 months here and there, I just hope it does not continue indefinitely.
Right.
And
right. Actually, the fear of COVID and the problems that it can generate is very, very real right now. There's another. What is the difference between a PMAY house developed by a private developer and those developed by government bodies? Is there a difference?
Yeah, I don't see there is any difference between the two. There may be a difference in the cost, but the eligibility being the denominator of one, anybody who purchases, one can take a higher loan and get a PMAY loan. No?
Yeah.
So there is no difference there.
There is Deepak who asks, many people are complaining of delay in getting PMAY subsidy. Is the government working to streamline it? Also, in case subsidy doesn't come, what will be the EMI with the adjusted subsidy or like a normal home loan? Have you managed to resolve the delays in PMAY subsidies?
In a big way. CLAP has been able to cater to a few lakh cases in terms of delay. But I must admit that as we increase more and more technology, as processes are more and more streamlined, we have more and more vacancies and we have more and more demand. And therefore, there may be some glut there because funding and due diligence does take time. But the year-on-year ratio itself will go to prove what I'm trying to say is that we started from about 5,000 cases annually to about few lakh cases every year. So it goes to prove that there has been a huge shift in terms of the speed with which the PMAY CLS houses are done. Having said that, yes, there is always a scope for further improvement and the speed at which we've been able to do year on year.
Right. Sir, Tejinder Singh asks, why is the subsidy option not available for loan transfer cases, as the customer got stuck with the first banker till the time he got the credit of subsidy amount, irrespective of the first bank charge at a higher rate of interest to these kind of customers? Would you? This
has come up earlier also, and we have really thought about it, and somehow we feel that transfer cases in CLSS somebody has paid a lakh or 2 lakh and transfer from accounts where this is allowed. But we thought that this may open up a Pandora box, and the scheme has really been going well. And we see a problem which could possibly begin with this transfer cases. And we also analyzed that what is the nature of the demand. We did ask our CNAs that how many transfer cases from within this. But I'm told that the transfer cases may be about 1% or 2 maybe. But 98% people are not looking at transferring loans because the loan structure by and large is very similar now. So we need to assess this very clearly, that what is that we gain by allowing this vis-a-vis what is the potentiality of what we will lose out on. Because this transfer cases involves a lot of transfer and book transfer, whether earlier loan had been taken or what is the average now.
There's a query that has come from Sheikh Naima, who says, in spite of the stimulus and extension provided by the government, still consumers are not exactly coming out to purchase homes everywhere, probably because of a trust deficit and default of buyers. How is the government working to induce the demand of customers further? This is something that has come again and again. Do you need to drive demand?
See, as I told you earlier, it is not only PMAY, but the government has made some huge pronouncements in terms of income tax benefits to the building community, also to the buyers with regard to their income they earn on 1 and 2 houses on account of sales also. But I feel that yes, there was a time where there was a lot of gray area in the kind of purchase of houses and all that. So after the course correction, maybe people are thinking about how to invest, and as you told, that they are looking for complete houses. So this is a period of transition, and I really feel, and I would appreciate also that in the coming times there will be a lot of clarity on how a house is to be bought, where it's to be bought once these things settle down. So I wouldn't be unduly worried about that the initiatives of government has not brought effect. I think it will take some time, and there will be a lot of demand in the coming days.
While we work towards a 2022 target, is there a target to address the fact that India is going to urbanize and there will be a demand? So how do you address that?
I can say that yes, housing as a demand will keep shifting because there is migration, and almost I was told that by 2030 a large portion of India would be staying in the urban centers. So there will be a demand, and I'm sure there will be ways and means to be able to approach them through maybe new schemes or new ideas, or perhaps maybe some kind of an assistance in terms of policy shift, because housing is a very basic requirement, and I'm sure we will be able to address the challenge as and when it comes. And in fact, PMAY is one of those first schemes, along with so many others in the recent past, which has addressed the problem in a very comprehensive manner, because 1 crore housing is something we may not have done in many years together, as in not only last 10 years, but in last 50 years we would have made so much in housing. But as I say this, I am cognizant of the fact that government cannot be the sole body which will be able to address this housing shortage, and this will not be possible without the role of private players, without the role of other stakeholders, the banks, and also the people of this country, those who need a house. Because even if like 1 crore housing is a part of the pie, and there is a large construction activity which is happening without this scheme, and it is there also where we need a lot of inputs and policy considerations and incentives that we need to do for making it the people realize their own dreams also, even if they do not fall in the PMAY criteria.
Right. So how enthused are the lending institutions, the bankers, the HFCs and so on with PMAY?
Yes, they are very enthused also because of the Affordable Housing Fund. The NBFCs and the HFCs have been given this facility through the National Housing Bank to be able to raise loans at a cheaper cost. And last year they got about 10,000 crore, which was exhausted. Even this year they've got 10,000 crore. So this is for the houses that these HFCs provide to the individual buyers, and these agencies then get it at a cheaper cost. So this has been one help. Like SBI is now our CNA, which has done more than 1 lakh cases. HDFC has done about 2 lakh cases. LIC Housing Finance Limited has been doing very well, ICICI. But there are some banks which probably need a lot of training and awareness uh, amongst the B and C category cities, because we do get complaints of some banks or bankers. I wouldn't say banks, not the entire body, but some bankers not reciprocating to the clients in the manner we would want, or in the manner in which the client would feel very motivated to go in for a CLSS, much rather avoid the problem kind of thing. And we do get complaints of delays and stuff. But I would say that delays are also on account of the fact that there is a huge demand, and bankers have been very instrumental in pushing this scheme ahead. There may be individual aberrations which we would be very happy to address, and also through the banks.
So that requires more capacity building at the lower levels?
Yes, capacity building and greater appreciation of this fact that they need to do this very properly, because the banks also gain, because to the extent the person is taking a loan and to the extent the CLSS is being furnished, to that extent the project is secured, in the sense that 2.5 lakh has been paid out already. So it becomes less of an NPA than what it would be otherwise. And also, the government coming in behind a particular scheme makes it even more wiser and better from the real estate point of view.
Thank you so much, sir. Congratulations. Crore houses in one scheme.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
That is a huge.
Thank you very much. Magic Brick has been a part of our story, and it's really, really nice to interact through you with the people of this country always. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.